Hi, I'm in the car waiting for my son. School pickup time. Sylvie is fast asleep with an apple in her hand and a beanie on her head, which is kind of random. But toddlers, huh? So I've been musing on the idea of parenting goals because it's something that Jules and I find ourselves talking about often. Not so much from a goal place, but more of a looking at humans and how we grow to become who we are, and working back from that, what does a healthy childhood look like? What does good parenting look like? And we laugh because so often we think that we have the answers, and then we will have a situation with our kids which will take us to an edge we didn't know was there, and it's a massive journey of growth and pain. So that is the premise of this idea, that whatever we judge, we're going to breed, attract, or become, which is certainly Julie's story with her breastfeeding journey, and it is where she's found herself around sleep with her fourth compared to sleep with her first child. And it's just that reminder that everyone's doing the best that they can with what they know, but what triggers us in those around us is teaching us to expand more of what we think is right or can see as possible for parenting. And I was having a meeting with a lady this morning who I find fascinating because she's at kind of the other end of the parenting journey. All of her kids, she's got 3 girls and they're all in their late teens, and she's had a massive personal journey with one of her teenage daughters who has had kind of a number of psychotic episodes, and is particularly what some people would say would be unstable, and maybe out of control, and I think when we're parents of younger children, we almost fear that stage of what's going to happen with our teenagers in this world, and how can we build them up so that they're more solid in who they are, so that they're not going to go and do those things, and they're not going to experience those things that were painful for us, and that they're not going to make the mistakes that we did, and that on some way we can kind of sweep the path in front of them so that they don't have to go through what we went through. But that is totally missing the point of what being a child and a teenager is, because it's about being able to experience those things and find out those, find ways to work through those challenges. And taking them away, it's almost like clipping wings. It's clipping it's trying to break open the chrysalis for the caterpillar before it's had a chance to push through itself. But yet, having the presence of mind to give space to that, is a real, I think, focus so often when it can be so much easier to either do things for our children because it's easier and quicker, and we feel a sense of service in that, or take away challenge because we don't think that they can handle it. And I think even when our children are babies, there's merit in looking for what is the purpose in this for them, rather than wanting to change it, I suppose. And Jules and I talk a little bit about this in terms of our kids' different sets of values and how they might actually keep meeting the same kinds of edges and challenge, because that's actually really purposeful for what they value. I mean, in the case of Julie with her daughter Jade, she's super social, and she really values friendships, and so she's also having lots of pain around that, but that pain is also where her mastery is. And so rather than making the friendship struggles bad or something they want to avoid, it's about what's the learning in here, how do we find the wisdom in this? And similarly in our family structures, when we feel like one particular parent is parenting a certain way, or we're rubbing up against how they do things and it's jarring for us, it's about looking at, okay, well, what are my values here, and what do I see that I'm giving, and in fact, where is the other parent also giving this child enormous gifts that I want to judge because they challenge what I think is right. There's so much wisdom to be found when we start asking questions about the dynamics that we find ourselves in, and also the values that our children have, and how what they're experiencing is purposeful for what they love to do, or what they find inspiring. We talk all day about this stuff, Jules and I, and on the podcast and in all of our groups, about we're all on this very, very unique path that is our own. And we perceive our environment in a perfect way to be in alignment with what we're seeking. And so it's about having the curiosity to have the questions first rather than necessarily having all of the answers. And that's certainly what we're doing with our next round of the Aligned Parenting Program, which is at the end of September. And we're also chucking in a bunch of whole new content around interpersonal neurobiology. So that's kind of like the whole brain child type stuff, but bringing it back to also the parent-child dynamic, and how we can be comfortable with more of the discomfort that our children bring us. In the case like the back of my seat at the moment, it's a bit dirty because I've been letting my son, if I'm having to move him where I need him to go and he's in resistance, giving him an outlet of kicking my seat, because I actually see that as a helpful way for him to move the big feelings, and rather than stopping that energy, ensuring that energy has an outlet. And then when he's back in balance, we talk about what are some constructive ways to move through that energy, because children are enormously sensory beings, and as adults we keep trying to get them into our left brain thinking mode, but actually they're living in a feeling world, and it's when we can enter that world that they're in a way that is really meaningful for them, we also create much more spaciousness within ourselves to hold that, because it's the nature of childhood. And they're taking us to the parts of our inner child, that where it wasn't okay to have these big enormous feelings, where we felt from our parents that those things weren't okay. Our children are geniuses at taking us to those edges, and so I wonder if that's also where some of your little ones are taking you, and whether there's something in that for you to expand on too. So gotta go do the school run, but just had some musings around parenting and what our goals are, and thought maybe it's something that you're into as well. See you later.